Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on how to apply for a student visa. We will be starting very shortly, but whilst we wait for everyone to arrive, I suggest that you use the chat function to introduce yourselves. It would be really nice if you could tell us your name, your country, and maybe what course you'll be studying when you come to Sussex. We'd love to hear about who's in the room. So, whilst we wait, in the chat function, name, country, and course. Hey, we've got someone from Kazakhstan. Welcome. Becky from Kenya. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Nazir from Mozambique. Muratan from Turkey. Galia from Israel. Sunny from Nigeria. Wow, we've got a real wide geographical mix of countries here. Got someone from Ethiopia, India. Sanya from India, welcome. Jonas from Malawi. Sarah from Turkey. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you everyone for coming. So, my name is Christoph and I work in the international office here at the University of Sussex. And for today's webinar, we have my colleague James Gordon. So, James, take it away.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining today. I'm James Gordon. I'm an international advisor based in the student advice and guidance team. I'm going to take you through today about applying for a student visa from outside of the UK. As Christoph said, the webinar is being recorded. And we should be able to make the slides available, Christoph, should we? And email them out to participants afterwards. That'll be
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
Yeah, because there's quite a few hyperlinks in the slides that direct you to important parts of our web pages. You're going to have access to the recording and to the slides afterwards. Um, okay, let's just have a quick look at what the webinar will cover today. Practical advice to help you apply for a student visa from outside of the UK. And we're going to briefly discuss healthcare in the UK as well as working in the UK. And there will be chance for questions at the end. You can put them in the chat. Put your questions throughout the webinar. And if there is a particularly pertinent question, then Christoph can put that to me during the webinar as well if something needs clarifying from one of the slides. Okay, so there we are, the international advice team. So there's me, Nicola, and Joanne. So we're all international advisors, and we have an assistant as well, Taka, who helps us in the international advice team. So we've all been advising students for well over 20 years now. So we're quite expert in the student visa process. So do make use of us and contact us with any questions that you have, we can help you through this process. Let's have a look at where you can find some of our information as well. You will get these slides. So all these web links you will be able to click on when you receive the slides. So we have a lot of information on the Student Hub at the university, and that contains all the student visa requirements and links to the student visa application form. The link is there to contact our team at any time for help. So you can submit an online form, and we can answer your questions via email. Um, it's very important with your student visa application that you don't rush into making the application and that you only apply when you're fully ready to apply and you're sure that you meet all the requirements. The UKVI rules are very strict. So UKVI stands for UK Visas and Immigration. They're the body, part of the UK government, who will be deciding your visa application. So if you're unclear about anything, then ask a question today or contact us afterwards and we can help you. I can just see that there's a question in the chat there about will there be a section on international students applying from within the UK? Not today, no. This will be about making an application from outside of the UK. We do have a part of our web pages that goes through the in-country visa application process. But I would recommend that anybody that is currently in the UK and thinking of making their visa application from here to contact us, because there are slightly different rules about who can apply from within the UK and who can't. But this presentation today will be about making the application from overseas. Okay. So let's start off by thinking a bit about the timeline of when you can apply. So the earliest you can apply for your student visa is 6 months before your course starts, as stated on your CAS. So I'm going to explain in more detail what a CAS is on the next few slides, but it's a very important document that you receive after your offer is unconditional, and it allows you to make the student visa application. So you can only make the visa application after you have received your CAS document from Sussex. As we've said, make sure that you meet all the requirements before you apply. And I've listed there some key dates at Sussex. So the arrival at the university will begin from Thursday, the 17th of September. So that's when students should be able to move into their university housing if you've been allocated university housing. Well, the official welcome week will begin on Monday, the 21st of September. Well, there'll be a lot of activities on for students, and there will also be activities within your schools, and induction and registration will be taking place. And then teaching starts from Monday, the 28th of September. So there are just some key dates there. The university will be contacting you with more information about your welcome and arrival and registration, and that won't happen until nearer the beginning of your course, kind of August, September time. So let's move on and just think about this document called a CAS. So CAS stands for Confirmation of Acceptance to Studies. You need one of these documents to be able to apply for your student visa. Unlike some other UK universities, Sussex uses a platform called CAS Shield to gather some details from you so that we can issue your CAS. After you've accepted your unconditional offer and you've paid any required deposit, then our admissions office will send you a link to this platform called CAS Shield through a welcome email. And you'll then need to follow a procedure in CAS Shield, which will request information from you, some personal information, academic information, potentially details about how you're going to fund your studies. And then when all that has been checked, the admissions office will issue your CAS, and you'll get an email saying that your CAS has been issued, and you'll be able to access that as a PDF. It's important that when you get your CAS, you check that all the details on there are correct, and also that you check that any payments that you have made towards your course, including any tuition fee deposits, are showing on your CAS as well. So that's kind of an example there of what a CAS looks like. It's a digital document that can be updated. So the university can update it if any of the details are incorrect or you make any subsequent payments. And what you will do with your CAS is when you're filling in your student visa application, you'll use the information on your CAS to fill in parts of the visa application. So your CAS will include a unique number, a unique CAS number that you will need to put on your visa application form. It will include your personal details, your name, date of birth, nationality, your passport number, and very importantly, it will include details of your course. So your course title, the length of your course. So it'll have your course start and course end dates on it, and the level of your course. And these are all things that you will need to input into the student visa application. So we recommend that you print the most recent version of your CAS sent to you by the admissions team before travelling to the UK, because it can be helpful for the border force officer when you arrive if you have a paper copy of your CAS upon arrival. So that's the details about the CAS. I'm imagining that some of you may already have an unconditional offer. Some of you may already have started that process and been invited into the CAS Shield platform. If you have any questions about that, you can contact us. If you don't have an unconditional offer yet, or you haven't been invited into the CAS Shield platform, you just need to follow the instructions from the admissions office on the next steps that you need to complete. And as long as you do that, then you will eventually be invited into that platform and then your CAS will be issued. So after you've got your CAS, you will need to think about making the visa application and very importantly, what supporting documents you're going to need because you will need to prepare all your documents before you submit the visa application. So the exact documents needed will be different for each student because it depends on your personal circumstances. But for the majority of students, everybody will need a current passport. So it's really important that you check that you have a passport and that it's valid. Ideally, the passport will be valid for your whole stay in the UK, but that isn't a requirement for you to be issued a visa. But it just makes it easier if your visa is valid for your whole stay and the full duration of your course so that you don't have to worry about either renewing it in the UK through your embassy or returning home and renewing it then. Most students are going to need financial documents to prove that you have sufficient funds to fund your studies and support yourself in the UK. And we're going to talk about the financial documents and requirements that you'll need in a moment. Any document that isn't in English will need to be translated. So that's an important requirement. And in some circumstances, some students will need a letter of parental consent as well. That will be if you're using your parents' funds to fund your studies in the UK, or if you're under 18 at the point that you apply for your visa, you also need a consent letter. And there's a lot more details on our webpage about those requirements. And we also have examples of the consent letters that you would need to submit with your visa application. So some of the other supporting documents that are needed for some students, a very important one is a tuberculosis test. So nationals of certain countries will need a TB test certificate to show that you are free from TB to submit with your visa application. So it's very important that you click on that link and go onto the government web pages to check whether your country, whether you are required to get a TB test certificate. You must get that certificate before you submit the visa application, and it must be via one of the approved UKVI clinics. So it's only certain clinics within your home countries that you can go to get that certificate. Um, Past students have said that it is a relatively quick process. It seems to be relatively straightforward and easy to get, but you will have to contact that clinic, book an appointment, go and have your test, and then the clinic will give you the certificate that you then need to include with your visa application. So that's a very important part. Everybody needs to check that link to see if you're required to get that TB test certificate. Another certificate that nationals of certain countries can be required to have is something called an ATAS certificate. That is a certificate for certain students studying science and engineering based courses. If that's a requirement for you, you will already know that because our admissions office will have told you that you need to get this extra clearance certificate. If they haven't contacted you about that, then you don't need to worry about it. If you are required to get the ATAS certificate, most of you would have submitted an application for that already. They take around 6 weeks to process, and you will need that ATAS certificate before you can be issued a CAS. You can't be issued a CAS without that ATAS certificate. But our admissions office will let you know if that's a requirement. There are certain nationalities that UKVI deem low risk applicants, and different rules apply for that group of nationalities. And we'll speak a bit about that in a moment. And a final document that some students may need is a supporting letter explaining any gaps in your study history. So this could be, for example, if you did an undergraduate degree maybe a number of years ago, maybe 3, 4 years ago, and you're now coming on to do a master's degree, it can be advisable for you to submit a letter with your visa application, kind of explaining what you've been doing in between your undergraduate studies and your master's studies. Have you had a job? Have you had a family? If you have had a job, you could submit evidence of your job. And it can be an important thing for UKVI to make an assessment on whether you are what they call a genuine student. If you don't submit that supporting letter and UKVI do want more information, they will contact you. It's not a mandatory document that will mean that you're automatically refused. UKVI would contact you and say that they want some information on that study gap and what you've been doing. If you've got any questions about that study gap letter, of course, you can contact us, and you can find more information on our documents page that we link to there. Okay, so that's the documents. Let's move on to the most important part, really, of the student visa process is meeting the financial requirement and proving you have funds to study in the UK. The requirements around this are very strict. We do have a small number of students every year that receive a visa refusal, and it's normally based on the fact that they haven't understood the financial requirements or they haven't provided the correct evidence. And quite often they haven't contacted us for advice. So if you're unclear about any of this information, it's vital that you contact us. We can explain the requirements to you. We can check your financial documents if you like before you submit the visa application. So do get in touch with us if you're unclear. The rules around the financial requirements are really strict. And the types of accounts that UKVI accept are very strict. So they will not accept, for example, lines of credit cards or mortgage equity or pension funds. It does have to be cash funds in your account. Go to our web pages. So all the information is on there, and we've got example financial documents on there. We've provided the link here on this slide as well to the UKVI guidance, which goes into a bit more detail. And as I've said, do get in touch with us if you've got any questions. We can, arrange a Zoom appointment if you need a bit more detailed advice. And it's important to note that the international advisors, so me, Joanne, and Nicola, were the only staff at Sussex that can provide you advice, immigration advice, particularly around the financial requirements for the application. So let's have a look at what the requirements are. So you will need to show a certain amount of money, uh, most commonly in an account in your name or your parents' name. So that amount will be your first year tuition fees plus a certain amount of money, which UKVI call maintenance funds, which is basically to show that you can support yourself and manage your living costs in the UK. And that amount is £10,539. So that amount will be the same for all of you because you will all be coming to study a course of longer than 9 months. So you are all going to need to show evidence of your first year tuition fee plus £10,539. You can't use the bank accounts of any other family members. Business bank accounts are not allowed, even if they were in your parents' name. A business bank account is not permitted, and you can't use investment or stocks and shares account. It does need to be funds that are readily available and accessible at any point. You will need to show that the specific amount of money that you need has been in the bank account for a consecutive 28-day period. You're going to need a bank statement. For example, if you were applying in July for your visa, it might be a bank statement that shows the month of June, and it will have a running balance on it, hopefully, which will show that the balance in the account has never fallen below your required amount for a full 28-day period at a minimum. You can use multiple accounts to meet the requirements, but if you are using more than one bank account, it must cover the same 28-day period. The closing balance on the bank statement or bank letter must not be more than 31 days old from the date that you're making the visa application. So it needs to be a recent statement that you're showing, dated within 31 days of when you make the visa application. We'll take a look at an example financial requirement in a moment, and we've got examples of those bank statements on our web pages. But just before we do that, let's just think about some of the other ways that you might meet the proof of funds requirement as well, other than bank statements. Some of you might have official financial sponsorship. So you might be sponsored by a scholarship agency or your home government, where they give you a certain amount of money for your tuition fees. They may pay all your tuition fees. And they may also give you a certain amount of money for your living costs in the UK. So you can also use that evidence to meet the financial requirement. And if you are being officially financially sponsored, then you will have a letter from your sponsor. It's important to note that there are only certain institutions and organizations that UKVI say can be official financial sponsors. It's mainly your home government or the UK government, a university, in some circumstances, an international company, or a scholarship agency. So it's important that you check our web pages to make sure that your financial sponsor meets that definition. If you have any doubts about whether a financial sponsor does meet that definition, then contact us and we can confirm that for you. Obviously, if your financial sponsor was giving you sufficient money to cover all of your tuition fees and at least £10,539, then you wouldn't need to show any money in your or your parents' bank account. However, if you only receive partial sponsorship, say a sponsor was only paying for your tuition fee to Sussex, then you are still going to need to show the maintenance funds of 10,539 in your or your parents' account for a 28-day period before you apply. Another way you can meet the requirements is through an educational loan. Um, it can't be a personal loan. It does have to be an educational loan scheme. And there are again some quite strict requirements on what type of loans that you can use. So you need to go on our web pages to get more details of what type of loans that you can use. And again, contact us if you've got any questions. And the final way you can meet the financial requirement is by potentially prepaying some of your tuition fees and rent if you're living in university accommodation. So you might remember that on the CAS, it does show details of your tuition fee and any payments that you have made towards it. So a good example of this, if you're a master's student, is obviously that you may be required to pay a £5,000 deposit before your CAS can be issued. And if you've paid that £5,000 deposit, it should show on your CAS, and you can deduct that from the total amount that you need to show. It's not a requirement, aside from the deposits, it's not a requirement for you to pay your tuition fees before applying for your visa. Most students will pay their tuition fees in September when either online registration opens, which is normally the 1st of September, or they will pay them on arrival in the UK. So it's not a requirement of the visa application that you pay your tuition fee, but it can be an option for you to prepay that fee if you want. And if you did pay your entire tuition fee before making the student visa application, and that payment showed on your CAS, the entire fee, then you would only need to show the maintenance funds of 10,539 in your bank account when you make the visa application. So here's kind of an example financial calculation. So it's relatively straightforward, and all of you should be able to make this calculation now because you should all know, I think from your conditional offer letter as well, what your tuition fee will be for your course. So the example here is £23,000 tuition fee plus the 10,539, and that gives that total there of 33,539. So you can all now find your tuition fee, add on the 10,539, and you'll know the total amount that you need to show to meet the financial requirement. Importantly there, it says you can minus any payments you have already made and have been confirmed on your CAS. So again, for example, if you've paid the £5,000 deposit, then you can subtract that from the total amount you need to show, and you'll be left with a figure that you then need to demonstrate in your or your parents' bank account for a 28-day period. Contact us if you're not clear about what your amount is. Contact us if you have any questions about this, and we can advise you. How am I doing for time, Christoph? I can't see.
It's 28 minutes past, so you're
Oh,
halfway through.
brilliant. Good. That's about right. Brilliant. Thanks for that. So I mentioned low risk applicants before. So there are different rules apply for nationals of certain countries, known as low risk nationals to UKVI. And the different document requirements, they'll apply if you make the student visa application with a passport from one of the countries that are listed in that particular appendix there. It's called Appendix ST 22.1. I'm going to show you a list of the nationalities on the next slide. But if you are one of these nationals, then you still need to hold the required amount and type of funds in the way that I've just described before making the visa application, but you won't be required to submit the documentary evidence. So you won't need to submit any financial evidence or bank statements with your visa application. Although you won't need to include and submit those financial documents, you do still need to include any other required documents that we discussed. For example, the TB test certificate or an ATAS certificate, you would still need to include those. If you are one of the nationals that's listed on the next slide, you shouldn't include documents just in case. If you do, then the UKVI they will look at those documents in the normal way and they'll refuse your visa application if they're not correct. So we don't advise that you submit financial documents if you are a low risk national. And just to mention that if you have any dependents or family members that will be joining you during your studies in the UK, and I'll mention in a moment who qualifies to do that, to also be eligible not to submit any financial documents, they do need to be applying from the same country as you at the same time as you as well. So even though you won't need to submit these financial documents, you still need to meet that financial requirement because UKVI caseworkers, they can still request to see your finances. So it's possible that you could receive an email after you've applied where a caseworker says, please, can you send in your bank statements? We still want to check them. They would give you a certain amount of time to do that. And if you don't comply with that, then your application will be refused. So you still need to have held the required amount of money for 28 days before you make the visa application, but you won't need to submit any documentary evidence for that with your visa application. So here is the list of nationals. So it's all let's have a look. I was trying to remember the nationalities that we're dealing with at the moment, Christoph, but where are we? Kazakhstan is on there. Anyone else there from your region?
Just reading the list now.
Bahrain? No.
I think it's mainly Kazakhstan here.
Yeah, Kuwait maybe as well. And then let's go on to the next list. And then what have we got there? We've got Oman, Qatar, Tunisia, UAE is on there as well. So it is just those specific nationalities that would fall into this bracket. And if you're not one of those nationals, then you are going to need to submit the financial documents with your visa application. Yeah. Let us know if you've got any questions about that. Okay, so let's go on to actually submitting the visa application. So you have received your CAS from the university. You have carefully checked all the requirements. You've got a TB test certificate if you're required to get one. You've made sure that you can meet the financial requirements and that you've held the money for 28 days and you've got that financial evidence with you. You've asked us any questions, and then you're ready to submit. So what all applicants need to do is to complete and submit an online application, and the link is there and on our web pages. The application takes an hour or two to complete. It will ask you lots of personal details. It will ask you details of your travel history, your immigration history. It will ask you financial questions. It will ask you important questions about your CAS, so about your CAS number and the course details about your course. It will ask you about criminal convictions as well. And if you do have any criminal convictions, then it's really important that you contact us and then we can advise you on that. But you will fill in all of that information. And then the next step is you will pay an application fee. So you will pay it online. The fee is currently 558 for a standard application. There are some premium and priority applications available, and I'll tell you about those on the next slide. And you can also find information about those services at your specific visa application centre. You will also need to pay something called the Immigration Health Surcharge or IHS charge. So this is the charge that you pay that will allow you to access treatment from the UK's National Health Service. So the UK has a National Health Service called the NHS that all people in the UK use. And after you have paid this fee, it will give you access to the NHS services in the UK. So seeing a doctor or going to hospital on the same basis as a British national. So the fee for the IHS is £776 per year for every year of your visa that you get granted. As an example here, for a one-year master's student, the cost would be 1164 because you're actually going to be granted a visa for around 1 year and 4 months. And that means that you will pay half of the yearly amount for any 6 month period over 1 year. So for a one-year master's, it's 1164. Obviously, if you're doing an undergraduate course and it's a 3 year course, you're likely going to have to pay the immigration health surcharge for 3.5 years. So it's important that you factor that in because you do have to pay the entire amount in advance for every year of your studies when you make the visa application. Um, the final thing that you will do, and very importantly, after you've paid the fees, is the majority of you will have to book an appointment at a visa application centre in your country. And that will be to go and have your fingerprints and photo taken, which UKVI refer to as biometrics. So that link to the visa application centres there, you can familiarise yourself with the closest centre to you in the country where you are, so that when you do book your appointment, you know where you're going to have to go, and you will get a printout with your application details that you will take to your appointment along with your passport. You'll go there, you'll have your photo taken, you'll give your fingerprints, and then after you have done that, the UKVI can start processing your application. Unfortunately, you can't see appointment availability until you have paid the fees. And you're in the process of submitting the visa application. But generally, you will get an appointment, hopefully within a week of when you submit the visa application. But you do have to factor that in to the processing times, which we'll talk about in a moment. So yes, I've said there, so you'll book this appointment when you pay for and submit your online visa application. There are some nationals that don't have to attend an appointment, and they use something called the Immigration ID Check app to scan their identity documents. But at the moment, that is only available to EU nationals. So I think most of you guys will be attending a biometric appointment as part of your visa application. So let's just continue and think of the final steps. So regarding any documents that you have, in most cases, yeah, sorry, that first bullet point is slightly incorrect because in most cases now you will upload documents as part of the online application process, and you won't submit them at the visa application centre. So the application form will take you through, and you will be able to upload electronic scans of bank statements and your passport and your TB test certificate when you submit the application online. You do have an option. You can take your documents with you to the visa application centre and your appointment as well, just in case, and the centre would be able to upload them for you. But I think they charge a fee for that. So it's always best to upload them yourself. And it's a very simple process. You will scan or take a picture of it that meets certain requirements and then upload it and attach it to your application. Some students may be given a credibility interview by video link, where you'll be asked about why you want to study your course in the UK and specifically why you want to study at Sussex. UKVI will contact you if they want to invite you to an interview. And at that link there, we've got lots of information about how you would prepare for that interview, of the types of questions you might get asked, um, and also the process that you'll go through to get your CAS. Um, will kind of with the CAS Shield process will help you with that as well. It's possible that some of you may have to go through an interview process before you're issued your CAS as well through this online CAS Shield process. But that would be a good preparation for if UKVI also call you for what they call a credibility interview. If you are called for a credibility interview and you have any questions, then get in touch with us. It will be conducted by video link, so it will be an online call. Obviously, you won't need to go in person anywhere. Yeah, you just need to visit our link to prepare for that. So processing times. The best place is to check the UKVI website for the most up-to-date processing times, but in general, standard applications normally take 3 weeks from the date of your appointment. So that 3-week standard processing time starts from the day after you've attended your biometrics appointment. So that's important to note. You can pay extra fees for a priority application, which will reduce the processing time to 5 working days. So that costs £500 extra, or a super priority application that reduces it to 1 working day, but that costs £1,000 extra. Most of you, provided you apply, the university is issuing CASs now. So if you have an unconditional offer and you've been invited to fill out your details in the CAS Shield process, it should be a relatively quick process to get your CAS. And certainly if you submit your visa application anytime from in June or July, a standard application should be fine for you to receive your visa in time for your arrival, which was from the 17th of September. I've got that right, haven't I? The Thursday, the 17th of September, yeah, is the first day that you can arrive, with classes starting on Monday, the 28th. Obviously, if you still haven't received your CAS yet for some reason, maybe there is a condition that you need to meet, or there's been some other delay, and we're getting into August, that's when potentially you need to be thinking about the priority application, because you're getting closer to September and your visa being issued, and you don't want to delay obviously your arrival for the Welcome Week activities, and particularly for the beginning of teaching on Monday, the 28th of September. There is a latest registration date at the university as well, which will be stated on your CAS, which is normally 3 weeks after teaching has begun. But if you're in a situation where you haven't been able to arrive for Welcome Week, then you need to be getting in touch with us, and we can advise you on those things on a case-by-case basis. But provided you apply in good time, then it's normally a relatively quick process, and there shouldn't be any delays.
Um,
Same. Go on,
James,
Christoph.
we've got a question from Gloria, so I'm just going to allow her to talk if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, go for it, Gloria.
I'm so sorry, my hand was just went by mistake.
Oh, okay. You don't have a
I was trying to
question.
take a screenshot. No, I don't have a question. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem.
No
Sorry,
problem.
carry on,
Yeah.
James.
Just email us later, Gloria, if you want to clarify anything, that's fine. So they're the processing times. It is possible in some circumstances that your application may take longer to process if UKVI deem it not straightforward or they require further evidence. If that's the case, you should receive an email from UKVI if your application will fall outside of the standard processing times. If you do receive that email, there are ways to update the status on the CAS Shield platform. And you can also contact us and let us know. It can be that UKVI can want to verify your financial documents, and they may reach out to your bank, and that can cause a delay, or they may request further evidence from you. But if that happens and you receive that email saying your application is not straightforward, you can reach out to us. So make sure you regularly check your emails and spam folders as well, because UKVI can contact you during the application process. Okay, so receiving your e-visa. So you will receive an email from UKVI with a decision saying that your visa application has been successful. And that will also give you details on how you access your e-visa. So UKVI does not issue any physical visas anymore. You won't get any stickers in your passports. You won't get any cards to physically demonstrate your visa. It will be an e-visa, so an electronic visa. You will set up a UKVI account, and then you will be able to access your e-visa and show your status on your phone or your computer. And that will be your proof then of your right to be in the UK. You must access your e-visa and make sure that your current passport is linked to your e-visa before traveling to the UK. So more details on that are provided there at that link. And provided you do that, then there won't be any delays at the border because your passport will be scanned, and then the border officer will automatically be able to see details of your e-visa. So as I've said, your e-visa is your student visa, and it will show the length of your visa and your visa conditions, such as how much you can work in the UK. And just to clarify how long your visa should be valid for, sorry, let me go back. Your visa should be valid for the length of your course plus 4 months. So UKVI give you an extra 4 months on the end of your visa beyond the course end date that was stated on your CAS. As an example, for master's students, for the vast majority of master's students, the course end date on your CAS will be the 30th of September 2027, and your student visa will expire on the 30th of January 2028. So it's important that you check that you've been issued the right length of visa and that your name and other details are correct. And there's a process to report any errors to UKVI. So bringing your family, we'll just finish off just very briefly with some sections on dependents and healthcare and working, but I won't go into a lot of detail on this. So it is possible for some students to bring their family to the UK, but UKVI rules are very strict, and most students studying a UG or master's course will not qualify to bring their family members to the UK. The main students that qualify are PhD students or those receiving a scholarship or sponsorship for a course longer than 6 months from their home government or the UK government. They do qualify to bring dependents. So if you are being sponsored by your home government, or maybe you're Achieving Scholar, which is one of the UK scholarships, then it is possible for your family members to apply. If you are thinking of bringing your family, I would recommend that you go on our web pages to check our details first, but I would recommend that you contact us so that we can verify whether your dependents do qualify to apply for a dependent visa. By dependents, we mean a spouse or partner or dependent children. It doesn't include any other family members. It's also important to get advice if you're coming with your family about accommodation, because the university has a limited number of family units. So you will need to look into how you're going to house your family, and we can provide you some initial advice on that before directing you to the housing office. So really, if you have any questions about dependents, contact us, because it's better that we give you individualized advice. Working in the UK. So when you have a student visa, it is possible for you to work in a part-time job in the UK. You can work up to 20 hours per week during term time and full-time during certain vacation periods. There's more information on our webpage about that. You'll need to get what's called a national insurance number when you arrive in the UK. And we can give you details on that when you arrive. And there's a link there to our careers hub where there's information on finding a part-time job in the UK. It's important to note that your work restrictions, they're very strict, and UKVI are very strict about those work restrictions. So it's really important that you abide by that maximum 20 hours per week during term time. If you breach that, the university has an obligation to report that to UKVI, and it can result in your visa being cancelled. So it's very important that you abide by the work restrictions. And for master's students as well, you will have a vacation period in the winter and in the spring, but the summer term counts as term time for master's students when you're writing your dissertation, and you will be restricted to working 20 hours a week during that summer period. So that's slightly different from undergraduate students who have very defined term and vacation periods. But have a look on our web pages and contact us if you've got any questions about working. And then healthcare. So I've already mentioned the immigration health surcharge that you'll pay as part of the student visa application. And that will give you access to the NHS, which is the National Health Service in the UK. So doctors in the UK are known as GPs, so a general practitioner, and we'll give you more information on how you will register with a GP on arrival in the UK. Most of you will register with the University Health Centre, and you will be able to see a doctor for free then when you arrive or at any time during your studies. You will still need to pay for any prescriptions or medicines that a doctor prescribes you, but that's the same as British citizens as well. You will pay the same amount as a British citizen would do. Hospital treatment is free in the UK because you've paid the immigration health surcharge. So basically, you'll be covered for all of your health needs, and we'll explain on arrival how you register with a local doctor. Just very quickly about traveling as well. So you may want to travel to Europe when you're in the UK, and depending on your nationality, you may need to apply for a Schengen visa, which is a visa for the European Union. So we have information on our web pages about applying for a Schengen visa. You basically do it through the embassy of that country in London. So have a look at the information on our web pages, and we can answer any questions about that you have when you arrive. And there's just some information on how to contact us. So there's an online form that you can fill in. We can give advice by email or a Zoom appointment if needed. And a reminder again that we're the only staff at Sussex that can provide you with that immigration advice. So it's important that you come directly to us. And there we are, Christoph. There are your details.
Fantastic. Thanks, James. So I just wanted to add a few things. So could you go back a slide?
Yeah. Can I just pause, Christoph? What I need to do is I just need to get my laptop charger.
Okay.
Just give me 1 minute and I will be back. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Whilst we wait for for James, I just wanted to do something. Give me one moment. James talked briefly about careers and working part-time. We actually have a webinar specifically about this on Wednesday, the 17th of June. So I've put the link in the chat now, and a member of our careers team is going to talk all about how you can work part-time whilst living here on an international student visa. So if you're interested in working part-time and you want to know about how Sussex can help you to develop your career, then I suggest you join that webinar on the 17th of June. Um, and
Nearly
yeah,
there.
Might be enough
great.
now for me to just introduce myself because I was 10 minutes late. I had another call. So I think Christoph and James have already introduced themselves. I'm Khalid Abbas. You can see my details there in the bottom of the slide. So I'm the International Officer for Africa, Pakistan, and Middle East. So those are my details there if you need to get in touch about anything non-visa related. So nice to meet you, and we'll go through some questions in a bit. Okay, over to you, James. Thank you.
Yeah,
Brilliant. Crisis averted. Laptop
yeah.
fully powered.
Great. So, yeah, so just to be very clear, if it's anything to do with visa, you have to contact James's team. Don't contact me or Khalid about visa because we will just pass you on to James's team. So please, if it's to do with a visa, contact James directly. I put the link in the chat, and also the link to the form will be in the presentation, and the presentation will be shared. So you will have it there. We will also be sharing the recording in case you want to rewatch any of this, but to be honest, most of the links and stuff you need are in the presentation. We had one question, James.
Hmm.
Well, a few questions. Um, Let me find it. Galia asked, was wondering whether one can come visit the UK as a visitor for a week whilst having applied for a visa in August, for example.
That's a good question. Um, I'm pausing because I mean, it is possible to visit the UK on a visitor visa. You can't apply from within the UK for a student visa when you have a visitor visa, but students do come to visit and then return to their home country and then make the visa application. I'm pausing to think through about making the visa application and then visiting the UK. Because in some circumstances, students, because your student visa will be valid to begin up to 1 month before the course start date stated on your CAS. So the course start date stated on your CAS will be the 21st of September. So the earliest you're going to be able to enter the UK on your student visa will be the 21st of August. And the start date of your visa is determined by answers that you give on the visa application about your date of intended travel to the UK. So it kind of depends on when you're thinking of traveling. It's quite a nuanced, complicated question that. So what I'd recommend is for that student to contact me directly, and I'll ask a few more questions about the timings and their personal circumstances, and then we'll give them individualized advice.
Okay, so Galia, if you could share your email address in the chat
Yeah,
and I'll pass it on to James.
fantastic. Thanks, Christoph.
We've got some more questions which I'll read out now. Timeline for cash issuance. Any specific considerations for students who are still working towards meeting their English language condition? Also interested in understanding how the pre-sessional English pathway works if an applicant does not fully meet the required IELTS score.
Yeah, so those are good questions. They're more for the admissions office. So there are pre-sessional programs available. There's a 5 and a 10-week pre-sessional course. In some circumstances, you can be given a CAS just for the pre-sessional course, or you can also, in some circumstances, be given an integrated CAS that includes the pre-sessional and, for example, your master's course. So it would be important to chat to the admissions office about your options around that. They're the experts on the English language requirements as well. I mean, if you are still waiting to meet your English language requirements, we're still in good time at the moment. I'm not exactly sure whether there's a deadline in place this year with the admissions office, so that would be something to ask them directly. Um,
Thanks,
yeah,
James. I'm just popping the email addresses for admissions in the chat now. So if you
yeah,
have questions which are to do with admissions, so for example, entry requirements or IELTS, for example, you can send them directly to admissions. But yeah, not visa questions.
yep. I mean, what I would say about the processing times there is that, I mean, certainly the university is still making offers into August. And people are successfully making their visa applications in August. In some circumstances, if you make a priority application, it is possible to apply in September and make it in plenty of time, and arrive in the UK by the 21st when the induction week starts. But yes, those timings around your offer is something to discuss with admissions. Yeah.
A few more questions. Okay, for Mutiaba, does a common law partner qualify for dependent visa?
Um, in some circumstances, yeah, a partner that you have been living with in a relationship similar to marriage for 2 years, a minimum of 2 years, in some circumstances they can qualify. Uh, but definitely, I would recommend that that student contacts us and we can give individualized advice. We can direct you to the guidance around that and take some more details for you to give you some advice on whether we think that your partner would meet those requirements. Remember, it's also dependent on you being either on a correct course level, so PhD, or sponsored by a government, uh, your home government or the UK government as well. So we need to check those things. So contact us for individual advice.
So to be clear, if you're doing a self-funded undergraduate degree or a self-funded master's, you wouldn't be able to bring dependents.
No.
Um, Liazat asked if they can come 1 month prior to teaching because if they come with kids, they need to organize the school.
Yes. So as we just discussed before, your visa can be valid up to 1 month before the course start date on your CAS. So it's possible for your visa to be valid for entry from the 21st of August. It would be important that you put the correct date of intended travel on your visa application form because that's how UKVI date your visa. And then, yeah, provided your visa is valid, you could potentially enter on the 21st, 22nd of August, and make those preparations for your family. We've got more information on our web pages about bringing family to the UK, with some links to information about school and healthcare and things like that. Um, Again, I think as a general rule, if you are bringing dependents with you or thinking of bringing dependents with you, reach out to us and let us know. We can we can check that you're on an eligible course and that they are eligible to apply. We can give you detailed information on the visa application process because there are financial requirements to meet for your dependents. You need to show a certain amount of money for them too. And then we can also give you wider information about housing and schooling and living in the UK with your family.
Thanks, James. Couple more questions and then we'll finish. This might be for you, James, or for Khalid, I'm not sure. For Chevening scholars, will the visa process be taken care by the Chevening team?
So I've just popped that in the chat. No, Chevening will not take care of the visa process. You will have to do it yourself as a student.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my understanding too. But there is a specific question on the student visa application form that asks you whether you are a Achieving Scholar. You obviously answer yes to that, and then, as I understand it, you won't have to pay the student visa fee or the IHS fee. Is that your understanding, Khalid, as well?
I'm not sure about that, but it sounds like it could be something that there is a kind of waiver
Yeah, there's a
for achieving. But in terms of the visa itself, the student will have to
yes.
start themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Um, it's important to note as well if you're a achieving scholar, um, I think it's definitely the IHS which you don't have to pay, but I'm not sure about the visa fee. But you'll have a program officer at Chevening who you should be able to contact to check on that. But you will have to fill in the visa application form yourself. Um, just to add, it's important to note with Chevening scholars that there will be a requirement after your studies that you return to your home country. It's important to note that something that I didn't mention in my presentation is about the graduate visa route. So there is a 2-year work visa that students can apply for after you've completed your studies, and we'll give you more information and presentations on that when you arrive. But in most circumstances, Chevening scholars won't qualify for that because they'll be returning home after their studies.
Okay, thanks, James. Final question because we've gone a bit over time. Um, Oiku Erkan asks, after providing proof of financial eligibility and interview, how long does it typically take to receive a CAS?
Um, yeah, good question. That's another admissions question about their processing times. But I mean, it is a relatively quick process. I would say I hesitate to make something up actually and not know the admissions procedures. Um, but I seem to remember something on their webpage about 5 working days that they would
Hmm.
normally respond to you within 5 working days. Um, so, so I presume that you've gone through the cash shield process, uploaded finances, done the interview that's been requested. So the admissions staff will be looking through that and they will get back to you as soon as possible.
Yeah. So, Oiku, so normally around 1 week, and if after 2 weeks you haven't heard, I would contact the
Yeah,
admissions team.
I think in the Cash Shield platform, I think there is a messaging function.
Hmm.
So I would use the Cash Shield platform just to send a quick message and say, I've now completed my finances and interview. Please can you let me know when I can expect to hear with my CAS? And I think that messaging function should be quite quick. It's more like a chat function. So they'll get back to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, James. Do you mind going to the slide with our contact details?
No worries. Yeah.
Okay, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining. If you have questions which are not related to the visa, are more generally about Sussex, you can contact myself if you're from Turkey or South Asia or Central Asia, and you can contact Khalid if you're from Africa, Pakistan, or the Middle East. And we'll be very, very happy to assist you because we're here to support you before you arrive. And as I mentioned earlier, in 2 weeks, we have another webinar, Wednesday, the 17th of June, which is all about work. So it's about working during your time at Sussex, and it's also about work after your time at Sussex. So how you can boost your career. So yeah, we look forward to seeing you in that webinar in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much, and see you soon.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.